All right, welcome back to the Alabama Sportsman's Podcast. Today in studio we got Chris Westen, and Chris is from Northeast Alabama. He's a Mossy Oak pro staffer. He's a brand ambassador for Blocker Outdoors, brand ambassador for Scentlok. He's a pro staffer for Ghostblind, pro staffer for Deer Crossing Archery, Third Hand Archery, and he is a sales and marketing manager for Buckhorn Outdoors. He's got a lot going on, and he's a very smart guy. And today he comes in, we're going to talk turkey hunting, a little bit of deer hunting, and a little bit about his faith. So y'all stick around, and we're going to go right into the show. So here's Chris.
I'm a huge believer in and supporter of NWTF. I'm trying to right now. I've got a bunch of. I work for Buckhorn tree stands, Buckhorn Outdoor Products, and they gave me free tree stands, and I've got a great relationship with the owner. And there is a NWTF banquet this Saturday in Gadsden, in Rainbow City, maybe.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get him to. I've got a bunch of brand new stands at my house that are still in the boxes. Some of them are for pro staff guys. Some of them are for just who knows what. And of course I got a bunch of them out on trees in the woods, which I need to bring home. But I'm trying to get him to donate one to the dinner, one of those stands to the dinner on Saturday night. So hopefully he'll call me back tonight and give me the heads up on that.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Because I believe that I really believe in supporting the conversation and conservation and habitat and everything. And I think that there is, turkey numbers are declining everywhere. Yeah. Really.
Well, probably everywhere except for Calhoun County.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, last 5 years of us turkey hunting in Calhoun County, it is booming. I mean, it's every year. You just see more and more. It's crazy.
We went by a spot today, a place that I can hunt. It's a big open field. We get to hunt beside the field. We don't get to hunt the property in the field. But the turkeys, they roost in the woods and come out. But anyway, we rode by today during the rain, and there was about 20 gobblers in the field. There's about 100 turkeys there.
Wow.
I mean, most people wouldn't believe it. I mean, it looks like southeast Kansas or something.
Yeah.
But there were about 20 gobblers, establishing pecking order. They were fighting. They were strutting and racing. You know how they'll run beside each other and stuff. They were doing all that, and I sat there for about 15 minutes and watched them, and it had my blood going.
I'm telling you.
It's something to see. And this is a new piece of property that we get to hunt this year, so I'm excited.
That is exciting. Yeah. There is a field not far. I want to say, I don't want to say exactly where.
Oh, yeah, you can't do that.
Not far from where we live, there is a field like that, and the guys that go to our church live near it, and they're bringing pictures in like what you're talking about. 50, 75 birds on this field when it's raining out, and I'm like, well, y'all have lived here forever. Who's the owner? And they said, doesn't matter. He ain't never given anybody permission to hunt it, and you ain't gonna be the first. And and they don't. Yeah, and they don't turkey hunt, but I found out that a long time ago that when you take a pretty little girl with you and knock on the door, you'd be amazed at the doors that will open in terms of getting permission to hunt places.
And for those of y'all who are listening to it, not watching on YouTube, he's talking about his pretty little daughter he's got over here, which he said is an ace turkey caller. So that's his secret weapon. I think.
It is. Hey, I promise she can call them like nobody's business. And it started. The guy who used to make my turkey calls for me, a guy named Tony Reynolds, and he's been making this Carolina Assassin call for 25 years probably, and it is an amazing call. It's crystal on one side, and then on the back side is a small cluck and purr pot with made out of slate. And years ago he said, I'm going to make, and I've got two daughters, and they're both the same age, a few months step sisters, but they're my daughters, and but they and he told him, he said, I'm going to make y'all pink turkey calls.
Oh.
And they were so excited. Well, we met him down at Mark's Outdoors a few years ago, and he handed the calls to him, and just basically a pink Carolina assassin is what it was.
Right.
And we took pictures and maybe a video, is my recollection, and put it on Facebook that night. And he started getting, and I'm telling you, bombarded with people wanting that pink turkey call for their wives, their girlfriends. A lot of women wanted the call. So he turned into a production model.
Right on.
And that really, I think, fostered in, both the girls, but particularly Thumper is my daughter's nickname. Particularly in Thumper, she really wanted to learn how to run the calls and become a competent caller and everything. And she's a little on the fence in terms of actually pulling the trigger and killing one, but she really does enjoy calling, and she can definitely call well enough to bring birds into shotgun range. So I'm real proud of her.
And listen to that, guys. All you seasoned turkey hunters. This is a 14-year-old little girl.
13.
Yeah.
Just
13.
turned 13.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, she was
13.
12
right.
10 days ago.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm sorry,
So,
13.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So that's that ought to make
level
you
up,
to make you feel good. That's right. So,
But you don't along that. Speaking of that, and I know you and I had talked on the phone about bringing new blood and new folks
Right.
to the sport of turkey hunting, which I think is amazing. And I think we touched on it briefly last night, and I think that it's a really an intimidating sport to get involved with if you're standing on the outside of it.
right.
And I think that part of that is that the calling itself is tough. I mean, or it can be,
Right.
and there is a learning curve. And you can minimize that by going on YouTube or hunting with people but a lot of people don't have anybody to hunt with and don't have people that are competent callers that they can spend time with and
Right.
learn how to run those calls. But I tell everybody, and I have given away calls before, and I'll say, hey, if it's a pot call, I'll say, here's how I hold it, and that may not be best for you, but this is what I do. My daughter does it exactly opposite, and but if you sit in front of the TV, if your wife won't throw you out of the house, and if you just sit there and just play with it and get comfortable making a sound that you think is basically a decent sound, and it doesn't have to sound good to anybody else, and it doesn't have to sound exactly like what you hear a turkey on line or out in the woods or whatever, but you get that baseline general idea, and you don't have to be a competition level caller to call birds in and kill them.
That's right.
And I tell people this all the time. I tell them, when you hear those hens fly down in the morning and they get to carrying on, I tell myself all the time, good night, I sound way better than they do.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a marginal caller at best,
Yeah.
I think that people are intimidated by it when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And hopefully more people that have some experience will reach out to those that don't. I saw on the Alabama Turkey Hunters page the other day, my friend T.R. Pate runs that page. It's his page. And he made a post on there the other day, and it said, hey, I want to know the gist of it, and I'm paraphrasing because I've got the worst memory in the world, but he said, I want to know who hasn't turkey hunted before, and particularly kids. I want to know who they are. And youth weekend, let's see if we can find some people to call for these kids. And I ran across that post again last night, and I didn't see that anybody had really responded to the post. And I think that's sad.
It is.
When you have a guy like T.R. Pate, and he knows everybody, and he has the biggest heart in the entire world, and he wants to do everything for kids and people less fortunate, and he gives away stuff all the time, all season long. But when he reaches out and asks people to get involved and to take a kid hunting And I'm actually calling for some kids that go to my church that weekend. I think we're going to their Daddy's Hunt Club, or I would have myself volunteered to do it. But hopefully some people will step up and start getting new folks involved.
Yeah, that's what we need. I mean, hunting license sales have been down in the state, so, and I try to stress that to everybody. We got to do something. If we don't, we're going to be a dying breed.
That's right.
It'll die out with us and my kids, and if I have grandkids, well, your kids, they'll be at the tail end of it and watch it die.
Yeah, and the declining, hunting, and I know that it's a polarizing topic. I have my own thoughts on that and baiting and stuff. I personally, and that may not be your point of view or the next person's, and I'm not saying that mine is right and anybody else's is wrong. I would never. I think that it's diverse set of opinions that make things better. And my personal feeling, and we're blessed that we have a little bit of land that we can hunt on, our own private land. But my personal view on baiting and the first year of it is it's bringing new money to the state management resources. They don't get any money. The game wardens and stuff, they get no money out of the general fund. All of their budget stuff comes from license fees. And you're right, licensing is down across the board, and they need better resources. There are a lot of threats, I think, that real or imagined, that they need to start looking at and being serious about, and they just don't have the resources. So me personally, I think that it was long past time that they legalized baiting and put a tax on it, because I think it generates a lot of money for management and for conservation and that kind of thing. So me personally, it seemed to me, and again, this is just my personal view on it, but it seemed like if you can hunt over a food plot, to me, then that means that you probably have a tractor and you probably have resources, financial resources to afford to be able to do that. I personally never did see the difference between hunting over a food plot and hunting over a feeder or a bag of corn. So for me, I think if it brings more money into the state and it makes people behave legally, I support it personally.
Yeah. So. And one of the weakest arguments I ever...
Of course, we're not talking about turkeys, right?
Right. That's right, deer.
Yeah.
One of the weakest arguments I ever heard, and this is this is their go-to argument every time about the baiting, was the people who are against it was, well, it causes deer to concentrate in one area. Well, when I'm bow hunting, when I go scouting, I'm looking for an acorn tree that's dropping acorns, and guess what? When I find the acorn tree, it's got deer scat all around it and the ground's tore up, that's where I'm going to hang my stand.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know why? Because they're concentrated in one area.
That's right.
So, I mean...
every food source out in the woods, if it's a persimmon tree, if it's a white oak tree, or whatever it is, or blackberries, whatever that thing is that they're eating out in the woods, it does the same thing. And it just, for me personally, and again, it doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that this is just my thoughts, my personal opinion, is that it seemed to be skewed against the average blue-collar, hardworking guy that wants to come home and go out and kill a deer and feed that deer to his family.
Exactly. I mean, not everybody has, the luxury of hunting every day or hunting or multiple times a week, or just whatever. They have the luxury of hunting maybe one or two times in a weekend.
That's right.
And so, and they love it just like everybody's listening to this. They love to hunt, just like you and I and Landon. We love to hunt. And if you go and see it and you're not going to see a deer, you know what? I'm not going to buy a license. I'm going to sit at home, and then guess what? It's dying.
That's right.
So, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If it's legal, I'm all for it. And then one thing I always talk to Landon about, he's just a little shy, younger than me, but was who made that law up anyway?
Yeah.
Was it some lawyer that we elected to be in Montgomery to represent us
in the 70s or 80s?
That all he ever done was play golf?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I mean,
and can afford to hunt over a green field that he manicured with his tractor.
if he was a deer hunter,
yeah.
he may not have even been a deer hunter. And so he just said, you know what? I heard that we're against this, so let's pass a law against it.
Yeah.
So
and I think that the law, and I mean this respectfully, but I think it was a vague law. I think it was vaguely written, and it was open to a certain amount of interpretation from different game wardens and that kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that they've moved on to something else.
That's right. Well, how long have you been a turkey hunter?
I probably killed my first turkey 25 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I've only become fanatical about it in probably the last 7 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And really for me anymore, it feels like deer season is really just a means or a vehicle to keep my sanity until turkey season. And I love, and I get fired, and I can't sleep the night before bow season opens.
Yeah.
I only use a bow, but I can't sleep, and the night before, and I get so excited about deer season opening. And I do love deer hunting, of course, but for me, the opening of turkey season is a whole lot more like right now. I can't hardly stand it.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish hunting the rut because my mind is just tunnel vision focused on turkeys.
Right.
So we 2-3 weeks before the end of season, I was just like, well, I'm done. 4 months of it, I'm ready to go move on to turkeys.
That's right. Do you just hunt here in the state, or do you get to travel and hunt?
For deer, honestly, just on private land behind my house, and maybe 1 or 2 other places. For turkeys, I usually, of course, I hunt Alabama, and I try to go to South Carolina every year. A good buddy of mine, I grew up in South Carolina, but a good buddy of mine that I grew up with, he is in the timber industry, and him and his dad, that's what him and his daddy do. But they have 2,500 acres, and they're partnered on the adjacent 2,500 acres with somebody else, and then they have access to an additional 3,000 acres beside them. And we'll go, try to go every year, and they open the whole thing up. And they say, have at it, make yourselves at home. And their land is so big that the game warden is the caretaker of their land.
Wow.
So I kid you not. He's got his own house there that but they've got.
And what's the turkey population there? I mean, we all know it's great here in Alabama. The hunting here is.
I wouldn't know.
Y'all see a lot of birds.
What we do see a lot of birds and a lot of sign when we go. It's a totally different type of. I almost feel like it's an alien environment for me because it's really flat ground. I mean, gently rolling, but mostly flat ground, a lot of sand, and it's just because they're in the timber industry, it's open hardwoods. Mm-hmm. Everything that they've got is on I think they said a 3-year burn cycle. So everything gets burned, and so you sit down, and whatever tree you pick, that's where you're going to be. They've got a lot of fire breaks, so you can belly crawl to the next tree if you want to. Mm-hmm. But if you get to moving around a little bit, you're going to get busted.
They can see.
It is, and for me, I feel so out of I'm used to hunting these steep ridges and deep draws here in Alabama, and with thick leaf litter and that kind of thing, that I really feel out of my element when I go to South Carolina and hunt this stuff. And I enjoy it, and it is extremely challenging. But for me, because I'm used to hunting here, and I would agree with y'all that, and it seems to be the general consensus that some of the toughest turkey hunting in the country is here in Alabama. Mm-hmm. But when I go to South Carolina, I'm just like a deer in the headlights. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, and so I've actually got a real funny story about. And I didn't tell you last night, but I've got a great story about hunting there. May have been the last time I went to South Carolina. It may have been the time before that. I can't remember because I got the world's worst memory. Tony Reynolds was there with me, and we the night before he had been sitting somewhere, called a bird in behind him, and you know how that goes.
Oh yeah.
You turn around, and he runs off, and and that's it. And but that had happened on the night before, and we were having some sport about it when we were talking about it the night before. Well, the following morning, and I kept saying, "Don't turn around," when he's telling the story. You know, and I know he's right behind me. I'm like, "Don't turn around," and over supper that night, and sure enough, the next morning, walked directly. I thought I had this thing figured out. I walk in. I knew where this bird was, and walked directly under his tree. And I sit down on the edge of this green field, and I'm thinking, it is a done deal. It is done. And I'm going to make some calls. He's going to fly down right in front of the shotgun, and it's going to be it. And, of course, he gobbled once or twice maybe off the roost, is my recollection. And I never did see him. But I was doing some calling, and I knew that there were birds around, and next thing you know, they're right behind me. Oh. And I mean directly behind me. And I'm thinking, and I can't stand it. And the whole time, I'm remembering this story from last night. Don't turn around, right? Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and I can't, and I feel like every hair on my body is standing straight up. How much more can I take of it? I don't know. And finally, I can't handle it anymore. I turn around, and sure enough, there is a humongous longbeard. And a Jake with not the little bitty beard on it, but a, probably 1.5 year old bird maybe. Right. Anyway, the Jake is on the left and the longbeard's on the right. And they turn around, they start running off. They come together and across, and I pick up the wrong bird. So I shoot the Jake. The longbeard jumps up. I miss him. And then the Jake is, doing that death flop, or I think he's doing the death flop, on the ground. So that's 2 shots, and then the Jake jumps up and starts running.
Uh-oh.
And I shoot at him, miss him again. So that shows the type of caliber shooter than I am. He's hit hard though, and he's got a bad limp and everything. So I get up, and I've got pins and screws all in my knee, and I've got a titanium rod from my knee to my hip. So I can't get around that good myself, and I certainly can't run. So I'm hobbling, he's hobbling, and I let up after him through the woods, but it's really just waist tall ferns. Really, is what we're running through. And I finally get close enough, I kid you not, I threw my shotgun at him and hit him in the back, knocked him down, and was able to get on his neck.
Shoot him with it, hit him with it.
That is a true story.
So that's hilarious, because I've always wondered in like action movies, the guy be sitting there shooting, when he runs out of bullets, he always throws a gun. Now I know why.
Knock somebody out.
He's trying to knock him out.
I told that story to somebody at Mark's Outdoors a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
For their turkey day, and that guy came back the next year. He said, "I remember you. You're the one threw your shotgun at the turkey." So if you're going to be known for something, I may be a terrible shot, but I'm a pretty good shot when I throw something. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. And that was in South Carolina?
South Carolina.
Oh, my
South
goodness.
Carolina. So that was. I'll have to see if I can find the video. I made a video of it, and it's a little bit long-winded as I tend to be, but it was it's a funny story.
Right.
It's a funny story.
How many birds can you shoot in South Carolina?
My recollection is 3 birds for out-of-state hunters. I may be wrong, but that's my recollection on it. Is it's 3 birds.
Can you? Is it like Alabama? You got to kill 1 a day, or can you kill multiple birds in 1 day?
I think it's 1 a day.
Okay.
Which maybe you can kill more than 1, but it's my understanding that it's 1 a day.
Right.
That's a good question. I'll have to ask my buddies on that.
Every state's got their different laws.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Boy, speaking of the 1 a day rule, I had, and this has been probably 4 or 5 years. I had a couple. I was running and gunning, and I was pulling camera cards as I'm walking through the woods. This is in St. Clair County, and I would go 100 yards to one camera. I'd pull a pot call out, and I've got the mouth call, and I'd do a couple clucks or whatever it was I was doing. And it had been a pretty slow morning, is my recollection. But I get to whatever the second or third camera, and I do an excited cut on a pot call, and I hear these two gobblers just start going nuts. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, holy smokes. And they're on one side of this hill, I'm on the other side of the hill, and we start playing almost ring around the posy around this big hill. And so finally, there's a ground blind set up for my kids to get in on the other side of that hill. And there's a little decoy that we keep inside the ground blind. It's just private land. Nobody ever goes back there. Mm-hmm. So I went down, jumped in that ground blind after going back and forth. And they were literally following me around that, but I couldn't find a good place that wasn't thick to set up. Right. And so I went down, jumped in that ground blind, and I'm sitting there, put a hen decoy out, got in the ground blind. I'm sitting there. And, of course, I'm on the left side of the ground blind facing, two sides, really the corner, and then you've got two sides that you could potentially shoot through the ground blind. I've got all these other windows kind of closed off. And, of course, I'm thinking they're going to come on the right side, and they come right beside me on the left side of the ground blind, two humongous, for me, when I say humongous, it's probably a lie. But two good-sized longbeards come through. Probably 3-year-old birds come through. Mm-hmm. Decent longbeards. And I ended up shooting the one bird, knocked him down pretty good, but I hit the second bird as well on accident. Right. Didn't mean to. Jump out of the ground blind, leave the gun in the ground blind. No, forgive me, that's a lie. Got the gun, run out, and I see that he's hit when I get closer to, and I get on the first bird's neck. The other one is kind of hobbling up the hill, and then I'm like, one a day, when I can, for sure I'm going to kill him. Right. One a day, so I don't pull the trigger. Then I'm like, coyotes are going to get him. Who knows what? Mm-hmm. And So I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe I should just put him down instead of, let the coyotes get to him. And but of course he's out of sight, no way to get a thing. Set my gun against this tree, and I'm still on the neck of the bird that I meant to kill. Mm-hmm. And I picked him up, and I start walking, and I get probably 15, 20 feet away, and that second bird had come down, and he's at the other end I'm in the bottom of this draw, and he's at the other end of that draw, and it looked like he was trying to jump up in a tree, but he's hurt so bad he couldn't fly. And so I get on that mouth call, and he's badly hurt, and he comes right down the draw to me and starts doing circles around that hen decoy when he got to it, trying to mount the hen decoy. And I'm in disbelief. I can't believe it, right? And then he runs up the hill, and wild. I didn't know what to do. You're in gray area there. Do you kill him?
The ethical hunter in you wants him to not, suffer and die.
And hey, and I've got, and if you make a mistake, you will be an example on, particularly
social media.
Well, yeah, and especially if you pro staff for different companies or whatever, they will light you up online, and I've seen it a bunch where people. Now, a lot of the things that you see are stupid, selfish, greedy, celebrity type stuff where they make unethical decisions and they get caught for it, mm-hmm. rightfully so. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are guys who legitimately want to do the right thing. To me, I think you shoot the bird and you put him down and you call the game warden and you roll the dice. Yeah. Right. But for me, I think also that there are people who are going to second guess you and make an example out of you, and the companies that you represent get upset, and it can turn into a really bad thing. So
yeah, I've never seen so many people turn on hunters as other hunters do. We already have so many people who are against us anyway. The people who don't hunt, and then to have other hunters turn on hunters.
Yeah,
it's a dog eat dog world for hunters. I mean, they're out for blood.
It really is, and I think that I made a post the other night, and this is just like a couple of, not even probably a week ago maybe, but I made a post. I was it was just self-reflection, and I was thinking about myself, but the post that I made is, I said, am I the only one that, and I'm not thinking about that I've seen a picture that somebody made and I didn't agree with the picture. I was just thinking out loud, really, and writing it down, and maybe I should be more careful. But I made a post on Facebook, and I said, am I the only person that hates seeing these turkeys with their mangled up beaks, or in some cases their heads are blowed off, and that kind of thing, in terms of hero shots online after people kill one, and I said, am I the only one that doesn't like to see that stuff? And then I went on and I said, I feel like
I've seen that post.
I've got so much respect for the turkey, for the hunt, and I believe that they are warriors. I believe that it's a fair chase thing. I think they're a lot harder to kill than even a big giant booner buck. I think that, and I respect them a lot, and I hate seeing them tore up. Now, if you are using some of these broadheads and that literally decapitate a turkey, I don't judge you for that. I don't. That's your deal, and you post your pics, and I have no problem with what you pick, with what you're going to post. I personally, it was a moment of self-reflection, and it was a non-judgmental thing. I was just thinking out loud,
right.
and I had a one of my teammates somewhere said, well, that doesn't make sense to me. I would, I think, the bloodier the whatever, I can't remember the comment. And then somebody else said, and this is a heavy hitter, industry guy, say, you should take up a different sport. You should not be a hunter. And because he felt like I was judging other people. And that's and I think that is unfortunate, because most hunters are usually type A type people, and what works for me isn't going to work for you, and my personal views are not going to be often shared by anybody else. You may disagree with me, but it should be a respectful discussion, and we shouldn't. And my feelings on the mangled up turkey heads is, somebody at some point is going to get a hold of it and use that as ammunition against hunters. The antis will get a hold of it, and it will be propaganda to be used against us. And I mean that's part of it. But I don't judge you for whatever you want to post or however you want to celebrate your kill. That's your personal.
Yeah. Well, that's just like I like tea.
Yeah.
My wife cannot stand tea.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, she's born and bred here in Alabama, and
sure.
I mean, you ask him, she's country as a turnip green.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But she cannot stand tea. But and me, I don't care what you hunt with.
Yeah.
I mean, if they let you hunt with a dang tank, shooting number 5s out of it, I go ahead.
That's right.
But I'm not. I don't. Of course, I don't hunt turkeys with bow. I will.
Yeah.
But the guillotine,
yeah.
That takes their head off.
Yeah.
I always like mine to be there.
Yeah.
That's like, I ain't getting into that, but But that's just me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If that guy wants to do it, man, all right.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
I'll give you a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's legal. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
I don't. I mean, it's like my wife. She don't like sweet tea.
Yeah.
There's one thing that really gripes me, and that's like when you shoot an animal and it doesn't die and it runs off and you never find it. That gripes me more than anything. I want an ethical kill.
Yeah.
When I shoot whatever I'm shooting, and I shoot it, I want it to be dead.
That's right.
I don't want it to suffer at all. I just want it gone.
Well, everything I shoot, I kill it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
That never happened to me.
I don't lie.
I lie all the time.
I got video that's not true.
Hey, I lie all the time. I'll be the first to admit. I made a post on one of the team pages that I'm on, the pro staff pages that I'm on today, and I said, hey, I just want everybody to know, turkey season's coming up. And my stories, there is going to be a shred of truth to all of my stories, and you will see the pictures. But having said that, there could be some embellishment too. I guarantee.
Yeah.
But the idea that we are all perfect hunters and that we don't lose game and that kind of thing. I lost a buck this year, and I'm real select. Now I shoot does.
Oh yeah.
I'm real selective about the bucks that I kill. And I don't kill many bucks because of that. But I had a deer come in during the rut. I rattled him in. This is just a few weeks ago. Well, probably towards the end of January. And he had a busted leg. And that leg, and I had pictures of him the night before, he was so skinny. And that leg was kicked way out to the side, and and it was stiff, I guess. The story is that somebody that doesn't even hunt had shot that deer with a pistol in the leg.
Oh.
And that's the story I heard. And I heard this after the story I'm going to tell you.
Right.
But anyway, he came in, and he was in bad shape. Now I only bow hunt, and I like to, if it's 40 or less is where I practice out to 80.
Right.
That's where you feel comfortable.
But I try not to shoot anything outside of 40. And I've taken them at 50, 53 probably I think is the longest. But really, it would have to be an extraordinary set of circumstances for me to take a shot outside of 40. And honestly, this deer, he wasn't a huge deer by any stretch of the imagination. I'll see if I can find a picture for y'all later. But anyway, he was out past 50, and he wasn't going to come any closer. I made a shot. It was a bad shot. And before I shot, I even prayed on it, and I said, "Oh Lord," I said, he's suffering. He deserves better from me than what he's going to get from the coyotes, and we're loaded with coyotes. And I said, Lord, if you just keep this shot true for me. And it was a bad shot. The shot went through the deer's neck. And I went home. I thought it was probably a good shot at the time. It's a tough shot,
right.
Out past 50 and some thick stuff. And there was one little window that I shot through. And I may have hit something, which is, I believe, what happened, before the arrow got to him. Well, I went home, ran some errands, may have taken a nap, I don't know, but went back later on, picked up, and I've got a great German Shepherd that you talk about. He's just amazing about finding deer. And took my dog with me. We followed that deer all the way over the ridge, which is a huge ridge. We followed him all that day till dark, and then we backed out at dark. And then we went back the next day, and it got real cold that night. So I thought, he'll lay down and die, and that's it.
Right. And
so we actually came in from a couple miles away the next day, and we got on. I dropped a pin on on my, the hunt stand or whatever, the Onex app, and but we picked up the trail the next day, found him alive in a bed right before dark that second night after tracking him all day. Couldn't get a shot at him as luck would have it. Then he's on camera that night. He's on camera the next night. And then I didn't I didn't ever see him again. And it took, and I told y'all I quit hunting before the end of the rut, and it sort of took the wind out of my sails, because you hate to, like he said, you hate to lose one, and to lose it like that when you're really taking a shot that you don't want to take,
Right.
and you're trying to do make an ethical decision and end the suffering and not create more suffering. I really struggled with that quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
But that's deer hunting.
That is.
That's the reality of, if you shoot enough deer or if you're in the woods enough, those things are going to happen.
That's right. That's right. Where's your this year? Where are you going to start out at? In Alabama, or are you traveling?
Yeah, I've got. We're very blessed. My wife and I buy and sell foreclosures, and we found this farm. It wasn't a foreclosure; it should have been probably, but based on the condition of the house. But we bought this farmhouse a few years ago, and we are blessed that we do have a lot of turkeys. I killed 4 out of 5 last year without even getting in my truck. So that was great. Missed the 5th 3 times inside of 25 yards probably.
It happens.
So.
It happens.
Good night. You talk about agonizing over something.
Yeah.
So we're blessed to have a lot. We're going to start off at home. We've got some managers. I'm on. One of the teams I'm on is Scentlok, and which is owned by Nexus Outdoors, who is basically the parent company of Scentlok and Scentblocker and some other Scentlok by Oz and some other brands.
Right.
And so a couple of managers from Scentlok are going to come down and do some filming opening weekend at my farm, and then the next weekend a teammate from Mossy Oak is going to come down from Tennessee, and so I'll guide him again at the farm, and then I'll get after him really, really hard. There's a little boy that is a troubled teen. I say teen. He's Thumper. How old is Gabe? 13 years old, and he has been in trouble at his school. Got kicked out of school last year, and I took him turkey hunting a couple of times. Daddy's not around. And his mom has her hands full, and so I'll be really working hard to get him a bird, because I feel like hunting for him. This kid is the smartest kid you've ever seen, and he's the most popular kid at their school, and he was the captain of the football team and the quarterback. This 2 years ago, and so just a really smart, little Eddie Haskell-ish, if you remember. I'm probably showing my age here from Leave It to Beaver, the kid that, but the
Could talk his way in and out of everything.
Talk his way in and out of everything. That's right. But he's one of these kids that is on the fence, and if he doesn't get a positive role model in his life, he's going to be one of these guys that is going. Who knows? I don't want to. I shouldn't speculate, but.
He's got a lot of potential.
Going to try really hard to get him a bird.
Yeah.
So that'll be my focus. Him and Thumper, as she wants to.
Right.
As she wants to get one. So and then I'll go to Indiana. At the probably at the very end of our season, there is a thing for Nexus Outdoors. So all the Scentblocker and Scentlok guys will be, and most of the managers will be there. We're doing a 3-day hunt with Triple O Outfitters in Madison, Indiana, and I'm real excited about that. You can only take one bird in the state of Alabama, I believe is my understanding of it. But
Indiana?
Was that?
Indiana.
You said Alabama.
Did I say Alabama?
Yeah.
Madison,
bird.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I apologize.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm glad you boys. Good. You just follow me around for the next 2 weeks, keep me straight all the time. So I'll go to Indiana. I'd like to go to South Carolina between now and then, if I can make it all happen.
Right.
And we've got coverage here with the kids and stuff. So probably Indiana, Alabama, Indiana, and hopefully South Carolina too.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. When you go turkey hunt, what are you shooting out of your shotgun? What kind of shot This is for people who, like we were talking earlier. If someone's not familiar with turkey hunting, you're talking about getting overwhelmed.
Yeah.
All right. Give some advice on what works for you.
I will. I'm happy to do that. And again, I would qualify anything I say, really anything I say ever, as marginal advice at best. But I would. I have gone to the TSS, which the TSS is tungsten super shot, and it's a heavier load than what we have traditionally used. And the patterns, and it really, with the TSS, the pattern of the BBs seems to be, you can really keep it focused together in a tighter pattern, even out to, I think that traditionally, me as a turkey hunter, I try to kill them, 25, 30 yards, traditionally growing up. And but now with this TSS, good night, I mean, there are stories, and I don't hunt like this, and I don't recommend that people hunt like this, but there are stories of guys killing birds at 60, 70 plus yards with this TSS. So it is a game changer, the TSS is. So I'm using Apex shells this year. In my mind, they make some of the best shells, and I'm going to use Apex number 9s, and I'm shooting through a Some Toy choke. William Lambert is the guy that owns Some Toy Chokes in Georgia, and he does a really good job with that stuff.
What number choke are you shooting? Now, this is a 12 gauge?
No, forgive me. I apologize. It's a 20 gauge.
Okay.
I'm going down to a 20 gauge this year, and I'll be shooting out of a .562 choke. And I have agonized over, which choke and which, but a lot of people who, and I've got a new gun for this year.
What are you shooting?
It's a Franke Affinity 3, and which it's a real, basically a lightweight Benelli is what it is, Franke. But and it's not a deal breaker in terms of cost gun. I think it's probably a $750 gun. But some of the patterns that I have seen from these guns are as good as anything I've ever seen. And we have guys that are showing patterns at 40 yards with, 385 pellets inside of a 20-inch circle. And, over 200 sometimes pellets inside a 10-inch circle at 40 yards. So that is a game changer in turkey hunting, particularly when the natural instincts for a gobbler, now they will come, you can call them for 500 yards, they may come in. But the way things naturally happen in the wild is the longbeards will gobble their heads off or not and come from a very long distance, and they will stop at 40. They will stop at 50 yards, and they will start strutting and putting on their show.
Seen it too many times.
And it is, me too. And it is the bane of turkey hunters everywhere is they're hung up. You'll hear that word so much when people talk about turkey hunting. They're hung up, and what do? And I myself call guys that I respect a whole lot better, Joe Ham, that owned Hunter's Addiction game calls. I'll call him or somebody. I'll say, hey, he's hung up. What should I? Here's the layout, and and to get advice and that kind of thing. But that is what they are. So when we are calling birds in, we are trying to get them convince them to do something that goes against their genetic makeup.
Yep.
We're trying to tell them, don't stop at 40 or 50, but come on in to 10 or 20 or 25 so I can shoot you. And it's hard to do that. And that's why it's such an addictive when they're out there strutting at 50, 60 yards and you can't get out there to them. So I have switched to TSS, and I believe it is a game changer. Having said that, I think that there is a real danger of, and now you see guys are going down to 410s even with TSS. And hey, I would be willing to bet that 301 what is it, a Stevens 3 or Savage 301 410 that everybody's buying right now is probably one of the top selling turkey hunting shotguns that there is right now. They can't hardly keep them on the shelves. And but what I'm afraid of is I'm afraid that people will start to rely on the TSS and move away from the hunt craft, and ethical hunting. Because just because you can shoot a bird at 60 yards, in my mind, and I'm not judging anybody who, if they take those shots or not, but for me, just because you can do something and you might get, be able to pull it off, it doesn't mean that you should do it. I believe that you go on and, even though you can reach out that far, you go on and call them into 25 or closer.
Well, the whole goal for me is to get them as close as I can. You know?
Yeah. And another thing, in fields, that old stubborn field bird, he's gonna get killed this year. The guy that's using this, he's gonna kill that bird this year.
That's right.
But if that bird is in the forest, it's no difference, because like you said, you got leaf litter and everything else in the way, and it's 60 yards.
Yeah, there's going to be a tree.
There's going to be a tree. You might not get that shot, so it might not be worth it.
Agreed.
Because you're still going to have to get him 10 or 20 more yards closer.
Agreed.
So, it's got its ups and downs. It's got its advantages, but still the advantage is the distance.
What I think is challenging for new hunters, and I don't care if it's deer, if it's turkey, or whatever it is. I think it's tough to humble yourself as a hunter and say, hey, I don't know how to do this, and you do, and you have been hunting longer, or you do this more than I do. Can you show me how to do that? Or can you teach me how to run that call? Or, what do you do in this situation when they're hung up at 40 and you've done, and there's all kinds of tricks and stuff that unless you have a ton of experience, you won't know that stuff. And the learning curve at turkey hunting is tremendous. So I wish that more people were more comfortable humbling themselves and saying, hey, how do you do this? Mm-hmm. What choke do you use? Right. Why do you use that choke? Why did you go from a 12 to a 20 gauge shotgun? Do you like a mouth call? Why do you run that mouth call instead of a pot call? How do you run that mouth call? And could you spend a few minutes with me teaching me the things that you may know and I do not know? And the biggest compliment that anyone ever said about me, and I don't say this in a braggadocious way. That is not my nature. But the guy I told you that owns that plantation in South Carolina, he told my old call sponsor one night we were having supper, and there were a bunch of guys standing around, and he said, they're talking about turkey hunters versus turkey killers, and I think there's a big difference. I consider myself a turkey hunter. Mm-hmm. There are guys like Joe Ham, Eddie Salter, Lyle Gilbert. There are a lot of guys, and tons of guys that you've never heard of, that are bona fide turkey killers. And so we were having this discussion one night, and my friend Walker said, well, Chris, he ain't neither. He ain't a turkey hunter and he ain't a turkey killer. He is a student of turkey hunting. Mm-hmm. And it makes my hair stand up right now to remember and recall that conversation, because the people who were in that room, I have tremendous respect for.
Right.
And the people who are in that room know way more about turkey hunting. They've forgotten way more about turkey hunting than I'm ever going to know. But to have somebody say, Chris is a student of turkey hunting, is the biggest compliment that I believe I probably ever received, because I am not afraid to ask anybody, how do you do this? how, what should I do in this situation? Because again, like when I first sat down or when I first talked to you on the phone about doing this, I can, I'm a marginal, I'm just an average guy, and I won't ever get to where I want to be if I can't ask people why.
Right.
So I think if you don't know, humble yourself and ask somebody.
Right. That's right.
If you want to get better, you have to have the will to learn.
I heard a quote the other day. My son told me. He said that it said a man's education doesn't stop until the grave.
That's right.
And you know who said that? Robert E. Lee.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And I think that's a great quote.
I agree.
So and it's an ignorant person who refuses to learn.
That's right.
So, and I tell you what, when we were up there in Tennessee at the NWTF convention, I told my wife, she was with us, she goes, I've never seen nothing like this. This is the first time she's ever been there. She goes, I've never seen nothing like this. I said, this makes the deer show in Birmingham look like Trade Day.
Yeah.
It does.
Agreed.
And I said, and I'm so glad that I'm a turkey hunter, because turkey hunters are a special breed of people.
No doubt.
Oh, I mean, it feels so good just to be around turkey hunters. I'm a deer hunter. I love deer hunting. Don't get me wrong. We talked about this last night.
Agreed.
I love deer hunting, but there's something about the turkey hunting that I'm glad that I can associate myself with other turkey hunters.
I agree 100% on that, and I feel like, I really feel like no matter, I go to a lot of trade shows and industry shows and stuff, and these different events and things, and you get to rub shoulders with people who are celebrities sometimes, and or that own different companies, outdoor companies, and that kind of thing, and I don't care whether it's Toxie Hayes from Mossy. When I met Toxie Hayes, I went to the Mississippi State Turkey Calling Championships in West Point, Mississippi. This is probably Thumper would know, but probably 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years ago, maybe at this point. And I was there with my call sponsor, and he was walking around in a T-shirt, and my recollection is he had flip-flops on, but that may not be true, and jeans and everything, and I wasn't sure who he was. He walked over to me and started picking up different calls on the table, and the guy who made the calls, Tony, he was judging one of probably the Pulse division or who knows what, but he had just walked away. So he walks up and he starts picking up calls, and he's running them, and and we had just given his daddy Fox a call like an hour before, and I enjoyed meeting Fox and everything. But anyway, he's running these different calls that are on the table, and he says, boy, he said, Tony's so gifted, and he's just amazing with these calls and what he does with them and everything. And I said, yeah, he just has a gift that, and he does so much for kids, and we just making small talk and everything. And he said, well, you know what? I think I'm going to take this one, and this one. And I told him how much whatever the price was that it was going to be. And I said, you know what? I really appreciate you buying these calls from us. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to Tony, I know. And I stuck my hand out, and I said, my name's Chris Westen. And he said, my name's Toxie Hayes. And then it hit me who he was. Mm-hmm. And I was starstruck. And I said, he said, I've been waiting all day for Tony to walk away from this table so I could give y'all some money, because he won't take my money. And I said, well, I'm not going to take your money either. And he said, yes, you are. He said he's given me and my daddy so many calls over the years that we could fill up that display case all the way around there. And Toxie is a turkey hunter.
Oh, yeah.
He created Mossy Oak as a way to get closer to turkeys. That's what he comes from. He comes from turkey hunting. And that is, to me, really embodies just about every turkey hunter that identifies himself as a turkey hunter. That type of humility and that type of approachability. I was at the NWTF just a couple weeks ago. Y'all were there. Mm-hmm. And I've got a little boy. He's in my Wednesday night kids church class. His name is Braxton Sewell, and he is the biggest Cuz Strickland fan that you're ever going to come across.
Right.
And so he's like, and he always asks me, "Hey, are you going to get to hunt with Cuz?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not, because I'm just a line level pro staffer, and he is, one of the big shots." But he's always talking about Cuz Strickland. So I go to NWTF, and he was, and I was talking to one of the regional managers, and Cuz was talking with us and everything. And I said, "Hey," I said, "before I forget, I've got this little boy who thinks the world of you, Cuz, and if you would be so kind, if I could get you to sign something." And I'm fumbling, and I'm because I'm not prepared for this. And I said, "I don't have anything on me right now." And he says, "Hold on." And he stopped everything. He reaches over and grabs one of those Mossy Oak Gamekeeper's hats, brand new with the tags on it, and he signs that hat. And I thanked him for it, and he was really humble, and and you wouldn't know who he was if you didn't know who he was,
right.
And because he's not that tight, he's so humble. And after he walked away, my regional manager, one of the regional managers, a guy named DJ Randolph, who's one of the Western managers, he said, "I've been coming here for however many years, a lot of them," and he said, "I have seen, like we're just standing around," he said, "there will be celebrities sitting there talking to Cuz, and a little kid will walk up and ask for an autograph. He stops everything he's doing, and he signs that autograph for that little kid." And he said he doesn't care, Cuz doesn't care how many kids are in line or what he's got to go do or if he's late for something. He signs everything, and he greets everybody, and he makes time, and he stops the world stops so that he can greet these children and give them the love that they, and the attention that they're seeking. And but that is, to me, a typical turkey hunter.
Oh yeah.
They are, as a general rule, really humble, really honest, salt of the earth type of people. And going back to what we said earlier, ask if you don't understand instead
That's
of,
right.
Ask somebody, because nobody's too important for you, too important for you. I mean, we are all the same.
That's
and
right.
we are all love to do the same thing. So,
And I think any hunter, whether it's deer, turkey, rabbit, or whatever, would love to take somebody hunting.
Yeah.
Especially someone that doesn't, because
Never been before.
Exactly. All right, I'm not the best hunter in the world. I know how to hunt. I'm not the best. I don't claim to be. I know how to do it. I was taught by, I think, were the two best men in my life that knew how to hunt.
Sure.
But they'll tell you the same thing. They don't know. They're not the best. But in my eyes, they were. My granddad and my dad.
Sure.
But when I see someone, and I've had friends that I went to school with, and guys I've worked with, and I've taken them deer hunting before, and they've killed their first deer, and I've put blood on their face, and things like that. It's just, and to this day, they still do it.
That's right.
And I think every hunter, there's a little something in us like, I need to kill that first turkey, But once that happens, or deer, once that happens, hey, you want to go? I'll take you.
That's right.
And that's important.
I get just as excited filming hunts for people and calling birds in for people as I do actually killing my bird myself.
Oh yeah.
We filmed one here at our house. We're blessed with a lot of land here too. So we were here last year, and actually the day before we was on another place that we have to hunt, and I killed a bird, and I told Landon, I said, tomorrow we'll hunt at the house.
Yeah.
And so we got up here, we called, and we had a bird a while ago. We was talking about hanging up. He hung up, and he would not come. So he was going to cross the road, and he was going to be gone.
Yeah.
Well, just so happened a truck comes by and pushes him back into the field.
Oh, nice.
Pushes him back into the field, and by this time, Landon and I done crawled into the field, and there was a small berm, and we were under it, and the fence had made a 90-degree angle right there. So we were sitting by it. But I was on the outside, on the right side of Landon, and I had the camera. I'd had off the tripod, and I was sitting there holding the camera, and the turkey was coming. I could see him coming through the fence line. I could see that
thicket right down the fence where you could just barely see it. You couldn't shoot through it, but you could see through it.
You could see that red head coming up through there, you know. And finally he just comes out, and I got the camera. I said, shoot him, shoot him. You know, Landon's laying right here on my left arm.
I can't see him.
And that turkey, he knows that we're there.
Yeah.
And that crazy thing sticks his head out like, you know, to the left a little bit, and it gave him the shot.
Boom.
Boom.
Ow.
Just
Nice.
like that. And, man, I tell you, I had more fun doing that. And, you know, and him going to pick up that turkey and yelling, I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then the year before that, we were back here, and I called one up for my son. And I called that turkey gobbled and gobbled and gobbled. He wasn't coming for anything. You know, he had his hair on him, and he was going to stay with him. So I had a hen set up. So I told my son, I said, let me go out there and get the hen, you know, because we had things to do that day. So I started walking out, and I said, I better take my binoculars. So I look at the back of the field, and there he is strutting. So I went back. I said, son, there he is. So I started calling, and this video's on YouTube, and here he come. He just started easing down through there, and he got out there about 30 yards, and I told him to get him, and he hammered him.
Nice.
You know, that was his first turkey.
I love celebrating kills like that maybe you've called for them, or, you know, for somebody, or you've participated or filmed, like he said. And just being a part of it, I think, is just every bit as exciting.
It is.
To me, you know, I rarely, if ever, base a successful turkey hunt on carrying something out of the woods, because I'm bringing a lot. Oftentimes for me, it's the back and forth with an angry hen.
The next one.
Or it's, you know, who knows what. But for me, it's rarely do I judge a hunt as being successful based on killing something.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, it's those moments when you're not killing anything that you learn something or you witness something that are spectacular.
You can see him coming right there.
Oh, yeah. There he is.
I was so excited because, you know, that's my son. This is going to be his first turkey, hopefully. And I wasn't paying attention to the camera and the focus, and I was probably more nervous than he was.
Well, look at those guys. Look at Dave Owens, how those guys filmed Pinhoti Project. I mean, they're not filmers by any means, but that's the most realistic hunting show I think I've probably ever seen.
Right.
You know, and you rarely get to see the kill shot.
Right. And look at his barrel shaking. I mean, he had turkey fever. You know, I mean, he had it. Hey,
I still get it.
I do.
I'll probably
too.
hang it up when I don't.
If
they tear me up
when I edited this right here, when I edited this thing out,
and then he's stuck behind that tree.
Yeah, you see it?
Yeah, he ain't never coming out.
So I mean, we were
these like 30 seconds is like 2 hours.
Oh
if you're
yeah.
sitting there.
Oh, I know it. Oh, it's so agonizing.
I know it, and you know, I was sitting there.
Hey, probably still can't even see him.
I had to put a little bit of music in there so you couldn't hear me breathing so hard. I mean, I was.
Hey, you want to get your blood pressure up? Go to the turkey woods.
Oh,
hey, it might work with the ladies, but it doesn't work for the turkeys.
No, it doesn't. But he gobbled on roost. He gobbled all morning, and then he just shut up. And I was like, "You see that tree line right there?
Yeah,
that's there's a creek inside there." And he was on the other side, so
lucky
he went way up,
Yeah.
and he crossed that creek and come back down.
Wow.
I would have never believed it if I didn't see him shoot it.
Oh, here it comes. It's going to be it right here.
He was. We looked at him. He's probably about
There it is.
Smoked him.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Look, when we walk out, that hen stayed there. She just stayed there.
You know, look at this. Oh, this is so exciting. To have the first one on film.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hey, and the crazy thing, to see the hen running.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, we got his first deer on film. You know what? I think all but one of his deer he's killed. You know, we got them all on video too.
Boy, that is amazing to get that thing, and you've got that forever.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I don't care who it is. Your first turkey, it'll change you.
It will.
You know,
Yeah.
it really because and to me, I think that turkey hunting is one of the hardest things to do in hunting.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much harder than deer hunting, but I think it really, in a lot of ways, is sort of a coming of age when you start killing them yourself, and you get to the point where you killed that first turkey. I think it really means that you have arrived as a hunter. And I think this is a really special occasion.
I'm gonna tell you, it's something that gets in your blood, and you cannot get it out.
Can't shake it.
You can't.
No.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
Can't shake it. I've gotten to where anymore. You know how people get the meh for a deer and make them stop. I've gotten to where I'll do like a putt with a mouth call, and get them to stick that head up, and try to make a better target to shoot at.
That's right. Yeah, we do the same.
I shot one in strut one time. I won't shoot another one.
Yes, you can. You don't know what you're hitting in there, right? All them feathers everywhere.
Yeah, his head's just. You're basically just shooting his head, and it's just a poof of feathers.
And those things, when they're strutting, they're in such a trance. It's like shooting a meth head.
Yeah. Or you can. Yeah. Oh, it is. And you can even just say, "Hey, turkey," like that, and he'll just go boom, and that head will stick straight up.
Yeah.
There's that meme. Everybody, you see it a lot this time of year, with a turkey with his head sticking straight up, and that the meme will be something to the effect of, "Well, your hunt's over," or whatever. Because that's the last thing you're going to see before he turns around and runs. But if you're ready with the gun,
that's like last year. Was that what you're fixing to say?
Which one?
Go ahead with your.
Oh, you talking about sticking their head up? I called. There was one morning I took one of my buddies. He's never killed a turkey before, and he said, "Man," he said, "I got them all around my house." I said, "Okay, we'll go." Well, anyways, I set up. I said, "Where they been?" He said, He said, "Every afternoon they're up on that ridge, gobbling like crazy." I said, well, "Okay, well we set up down at the bottom of that ridge," and I call, and immediately they start gobbling. Well, they gobble all morning. They get on that ridge and strut, and they just come down straight to us. They see the decoy, and they're just coming. Well, the land rolls off like a hill, right, like that. Well, anyways, I'm sitting behind my buddy, and there's a pine tree here, and I got the camera, which I got my shotgun too, just in case. Well, I got my shotgun and the camera. I'm running the camera, and he's pointed this way, and that turkey pops his head up. There's two of them right there. One pops his head up. You can see, that much of him.
Yeah.
And he's 10 steps. I say, swing over there and shoot him. Well, he eases the gun. He doesn't know, like, hey, he's standing right there. Swing over there and get on him, Well, he just eases the gun. Well, that turkey, of course, he's looking right at him then, I said, crap. I said, shoot him. And that turkey, he's just, that wattle's just standing straight up looking right at him. I said, kill him. And that thing putts. It putts one time, and I know it's running.
Yeah.
And I stand up and look, and that joker's running, and he never stops.
No.
You know how they do.
No.
Yeah.
But it don't take long to them. They get to running. That's it.
If you go back and watch the video, you don't have, sometimes you only have just a split second to shoot them, make a decision and shoot, which an inexperienced hunter, he just didn't know,
Yeah.
But now he does. I said, look, from here on out, if I say shoot, it's time to shoot.
It's
time to shoot.
You may not get a second chance.
Yeah.
Landon and I were back here last year hunting, and we got National Forest on the backside of us right here.
Oh, my gosh. What a perfect setup.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And so we were back there. Well, the day before, I came home, and I seen the gobbler in the field, the neighbor's field over there, strutting. And I was like, man. So I took off, and I was on the National Forest, and his property butts it too. But, he don't care if we come across. But anyway, I was sitting up there, and I was calling because I wanted him to come up in there where I was at. Because he was right in the middle of the field, and there's no way you could crawl across that field.
No, he's going to bust you.
He's going to get you.
Yeah.
So I was calling, and I was sitting there watching him, and he would not budge.
Wow.
He was the boss. He was sitting there strutting, and he'd gobble occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wanting me to come to him.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was sitting there, and then I said, well, this ain't going to happen. So.
Yeah.
So I kicked my spot out, and I was fixing to get up, and I hear a gobble. I said, did he just gobble again? And so I'm sitting there looking at him with binoculars. He's about 300 yards away. So I, scratched my spot out some more, and I hear another gobble. Then a double gobble.
Wow.
And then this time I was like, I got to looking, so I pull up my binoculars, and there's two gobblers way over here.
Wow.
And so I just started, I said, they think they're hens up here.
Yeah.
So I just started scratching the leaves, and boy, they started hammering. And then here they come. And they come up through there, and that one bird, you remember last year when the tornado come through?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, I was sitting not far from there, and, it come over the mountain from the university. So, anyway, I was sitting about right in there, and that one gobbler, he was coming right up to me. I said, I got him. I got him. And I had the camera set up. I was watching the camera, and I had the shotgun up. I said, that son goes about 30 yards. I shoot, he flies straight up and goes away. I said, how in the world did I do? I said, how did I do that?
What?
Well, I told Landon, I said, man, stinking bird. You know, I was sitting there just frustrated.
He was
said,
mad.
he said, let's go in the morning. I said, all right, let's go. So he comes over, and he's got the camera, I got the gun, and we get back there in the same spot, and I hoot owl, and he's up on the mountain, you know, further up on the mountain. I said, we got him. I said, he's going to come down through here and go right into that field.
Oh, yeah.
And so we set up, and Landon's to my right, and I'm watching where he's going to come. I'm thinking he's going to come down right through here, and I'm going to shoot him right here.
Yeah.
And because the fence is over here. You know, I said, he's not going to come right here. And so I was sitting there, and I hoot out. No, I'm sorry. I tree yelp, and he gobbles. We sit there about 5 more minutes. I tree yelp, and he's muffled way over here. I was like, oh, no. I said, Landon. And I was sitting there looking, and I seen it was right at daylight. I seen him coming. I said, Landon, I said, he's coming right there. You know, he's about as far from me to you. I said, if he gets to right here, I can't shoot from here this way because you're in the way. I said, but before here, I said, I'm going to shoot him. Just tell me if you got, just say yes or no.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there, and I'm hearing, no. You know, and I'm right here. You know, he's directly behind us. And then I get back over here. I said, he's going to get in. He's going to cross the fence.
Yeah.
Well,
and
he
Landon
gets a shot on him. You get the shot on him, but I don't have him in the camera
right,
at that point.
Right. I'm sitting there. I said, you got him? I mean, I see him. He says, yeah, no. Yeah, no. And so
that's a
Yeah. They don't follow the script, do they?
No, they don't. So the bird crosses the fence, goes out into that pasture, and we sit there, and you can hear him gobbling. I said, dadgummit. So, and at this time, I hadn't called the landowner, so I didn't know if he was hunting or what, you know, so I wasn't going out there after him. So we were standing there just looking, and I pulled up my binoculars and said, well, there he is right there, about 150 yards away. And he was sitting there strutting. He'd gobble. He'd strut and gobble. And then all of a sudden,
what?
I was like, what in the world?
What?
And he turns, and he's running right at us. I said, get down. And we sit down, and he runs right up in our face. I mean, right up 10 yards. Blam, I get him.
Smoke him.
I walk down there and pick him up, and I look out in the pasture, and there's a coyote coming across the pasture.
Oh.
That coyote ran him right
Boy,
to
the
us.
one time in your life
that you wanted that coyote.
one time you want to see a coyote.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen when you're turkey hunting.
No,
never.
Anything can happen. Just like the truck, just like the coyote.
That's right.
I mean,
you know, I think that speaking of coyotes, you know, I think that there is a knee-jerk, oftentimes reaction from state biologists and game wardens and others that declining turkey numbers, they want to shorten the season, reduce bag limits, and I'd like to touch on that for a second. I personally, you know, I don't know, and I know a lot of people, I guess, but a lot of turkey hunters, but I don't know a lot of guys, and there are guys that limit out every year, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. Those bona fide killers, a few of them I mentioned earlier. But I don't know a whole lot of guys who I don't limit out every year. You know, I don't know a whole lot of guys that actually do limit out every year. I'm personally not convinced that. I really feel like the state should look at nest robbers and I mean raccoons, coyotes, possums, skunks where they're available, and in terms of, you know, reducing the amount of predators would go a whole lot farther in my mind than reducing bag limits or shortening the season and that kind of thing. I really just I feel very strongly about that, and it's not just our state. I feel like most states in general do not really put any or certainly enough focus on the reduction or providing incentives for people to get involved with trapping or killing predators and that kind of thing. And, you know, when guys tell me, and I hear a lot, particularly the deer guys are real good, when I hear guys that are talking about that they have this management thing, for example, me, I would want it to be a 4-year-old deer or older and 8 points or more and outside the ears. That's, for me, that's my criteria for shooting a buck. And may not be for the next guy, and I don't care if you shoot the first spike that comes by, if it's legal, and that's your business, and it doesn't. But for me personally, but I hear guys talking about that they have management practices that they use, and whether that's nutrition or whether that's size or numbers of points or age or whatever those decisions are that they make before that they pull the trigger, and they call that management. I feel real strongly that if you aren't controlling predators, that you aren't managing.
That's right.
And there have been a lot of really good studies by, I believe, Auburn and I believe University of Georgia about, for example, fawn mortality and relating to predators, specifically coyotes. And it is amazing that where coyotes exist, for example, and we're just talking about coyotes, that they say, and if you, I'm always suspect when I start throwing numbers out because they're always wrong. Mm-hmm. But I have the worst memory in the world. But it's like in the high 80 percentile mm-hmm. of fawns that where coyotes exist, that over 80% of fawn mortality is directly because of coyotes. Okay, and I would go further, and I would say that, and I don't know because I'm not a biologist, a wildlife biologist, but if you think about raccoons and possums and stuff getting in a nest, and it just takes a few seconds, they destroy the whole nest.
Gone.
12, 20 eggs, whatever, gone, right? So I think that there isn't enough of a focus on what are you doing between deer and turkey season and after turkey season. What are you doing? Because most of the game wardens will give you a nighttime permit if you have the resources to afford a night scope or whatever. If you have the resources that you can start trapping yourself. Trapping is fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's so rewarding. Every bit as rewarding as hunting is.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think
it's really not that expensive to get into trapping.
No,
either.
it isn't.
You know what I mean? You start out with 5 or 6 traps. It doesn't cost that much.
Half a dozen traps, and you get the dye, and you get the and the dip and everything, and the wax, and you're off to the races. You get the little sifter box and whatever, and it's just common sense, and there's a learning curve, but it is an exciting thing to get involved with, and it isn't particularly expensive. But once you start trapping a bunch of coyotes, I don't think most of us, based on looking at trail cameras, most of us have any idea of how many coyotes there are, and particularly raccoons there are, until you start trapping them or managing those populations. Yep. But once you do, now if you're trapping and if you're shooting predators, you have a good management probably program. But until that happens, don't ask yourself, hey, I'm got the dicalcium phosphate for the horns and I'm doing this, and we've got all these food plots and that, and we've supplementing their nutritional needs during the off season. You're doing all this stuff, but we're not trapping and we're not controlling predators, but we can't figure out why there's fewer turkeys this year than last year, and we don't understand why. And I believe that the state could be, and I am a fan of the state biologists, and I am a fan of the game wardens, but I do, if I had a criticism of them, it would be that there is not enough emphasis and enough of a drive to get people, interested in control. South Carolina a couple years ago, they tagged whatever it was. Me quoting numbers again is always going to be a lie, but they tagged like 12 or 18 coyotes, and they said, okay, if you shoot one of these or trap one of these coyotes and it has a tag, we're going to give you $1,000.
Wow. And
okay, so they've got $18,000 invested in, assuming that it was 18 and not 12. They've got $18,000, assuming every tag gets turned in, which they won't. But what they've done is they have created a dialogue. They have stirred up some interest and some discussion with people who would
people
not.
An incentive too,
Giving them an incentive, but it's just the fact of getting people talking about controlling predators that I applaud them. And I don't see enough of that from the state level. And I wish it existed. And I wish that there was more of an education to us hunters that, hey, there are things that you can do to, by the time we start talking about reducing bag limits and shortening your turkey season, there are a whole lot of things that you could have done over the last 10 years that would have gone a long way to us not having to have this discussion.
Right. That would have doubled your turkey numbers.
That's right. And so, I believe in my heart that, and again, I'm a huge supporter of, but I think that they could do a better job about getting people excited about or starting that conversation. And I think that there are cost-effective ways to at least get people to talk.
Right.
We're friends with Quail Forever guys. They run the Quail Forever. And
look at quail numbers.
And that's the thing. Like they say, you have to have habitat, which, you have to work on your habitat. But predator control is just as important as habitat. You got to have both of those.
That's right.
Or you're not going to have any quail.
And
the quail are basically, when they're small, they're the same thing as a turkey.
Right.
That's right. And I don't know how particularly the quail guys, because that's more of an open type of environment, usually pastures and stuff. I don't know how you justify. We're going to protect hawks, but we're going to let the hawks wear the wild quail population out.
Oh, quail
Right.
and rabbits, and even small even turkeys. When they hatch out, they'll kill them.
That's right. And so I don't know, and I'm not smart enough to understand those discussions or what those things are, honestly. But I wish I feel bad for the quail guys because there are no really wild quail available anywhere. And the guys who you go to these plantations and you talk to these guys, every now and again I'll do field trials with a buddy. He's a Hall of Fame field trialer. He's an older guy, goes to my church, and I'll ride on the horse and keep an eye on the dogs for him while he's managing the dogs and everything. And he runs these pointers, and you talk about some big running dogs. But we will go to these quail plantations occasionally. I don't do it often, but just periodically, and the girls love to do it because they get to ride the horses while we do. But we'll do that. But you talk to some of these guys who run these quail plantations, and you ask them, are any of these birds wild? They say, no. We're growing them back here in the chicken house or whatever, and we turn them loose. And then you ask them how many of those quail that they release make it on their own, and they say zero. They don't have the instincts. They don't have the, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody that knows more about it will come on here and say that
we've already done it. We've already talked to some
that I'm wrong in this, and
No,
and I can be wrong, and that's okay. But it's my understanding, and from what I have personally spoken with some of these plantation owners, you ask them how many birds will make it from this year to next year left to their own devices out in the wild. You say, so are you establishing sort of a wild population around your plantation? Absolutely not. We are not. Because every one of these things, they don't have the instincts, and they're all going to be killed by hawks or raccoons or who knows what.
Right. Coyotes or whatever.
Coyotes.
Bobcats.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, we hunt a lot of places in Alabama, and when you go to a place that somebody has a really good habitat for quail and turkey and deer, and they have a good habitat, because all of it is in conjunction with one another. I mean, if you got a good quail habitat, everything's going to thrive.
Everything
right
will thrive.
It will thrive. And you get in a habitat that's like that, and those people do predator control, bobcats, coyotes, raccoons, possums, and, they keep those numbers down, everything's booming.
That's right.
You see quail. There's wild quail. There's rabbits running everywhere. There's deer stepping out of the bushes everywhere.
That's right.
And there's turkeys strutting everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah. Landon and I built a house with a couple guys over in North Birmingham, up in Warrior, Kimberly area.
Warrior.
And while we were building this house, this was 2 years ago, something like that. You'd sit up there and you could hear the quail, and I'd whistle back at them like a female quail. And we had them all up around the house.
Oh,
sitting
wow.
there walking around, wouldn't
Yeah.
Called a whole covey up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the guy that was, that was building the house for, they kill, 130, 140 inch deer off this place every year.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's right by the interstate.
What is it, 50, 60 acres?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's what they own, but I mean, there's some land around it. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not far from the interstate at all.
Well, Landon ended up. The guy let Landon kill a nice buck down there.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a sweet spot. And the whole thing is, you got a perfect habitat for game, and then they take the predators out. Any chance they get to take a predator out, they take it out. We went to a spot we rabbit hunted. It was the best rabbit hunting spot I've ever been to in my life. And it was. You had large cow pastures around there, but the people that were running the cow pastures were taking the coyotes out. Every time they saw a coyote out there, they'd kill it because they didn't want it getting on a calf and all that. Because I mean, that's the livelihood. Yeah. Well, rabbits, they thrived in this one.
You didn't even need dogs.
Hey, I bet.
We'd walk in. The dogs were running a rabbit. Well, I shot one. Well, they're still running that rabbit. I walk over to pick it up, jump another rabbit, shoot that rabbit, and then I think you ended up killing that rabbit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how many we killed that day.
And they were just running everywhere. The game was thriving because, number one, the habitat was there. Number two, they used predator control.
Yeah.
And if you talk to Sean Phillips, he owns that Down South Trappers. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, he and his dad are probably the couple of the foremost authorities on.
I guarantee it.
They know everything.
They know their business.
See the guy that got bit last week? Taking a coyote out of a trap? May have been him.
Could have.
It was on his web. It was on his page.
I know his dad called a black one black coyote.
Somebody, one of the boys got bit by one in the face. It got complacent and bit him in the face.
We'll have to ask him.
Send the thing off for. It may not have been him, but it was somebody on his page or on his.
We'll ask him. I bet he knows them.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
I bet he does.
But he'll tell you that you have to trap. He'll tell you have to kill them. And just like managing, your property, a deer's rack is a lot of it. A lot of times it's controlled by stress.
That's right.
And if he feels hunter stress or like coyote or any kind of wild stress, it affects his rack.
That's right.
Yep.
So I mean, you might have a 5-year-old deer. He's a 130-inch deer at 5 years old.
Yeah.
But you take the stress off of him next year, he may be 150 inch.
That's right. That boy you hear. One thing that bothers me, and I try not to judge. This is the one thing that really gets under my skin is when I see somebody, and I don't care if you shoot spikes, and I don't care if it's legal. Have at it, do what you want. Brown it's down. It doesn't bother me one bit. I don't care how the next person hunt. But the one thing that really gets under my skin, and it isn't the size of the deer that bothers me, but what bothers me is when somebody says coal buck, and they show you a picture of an immature deer or maybe one side is messed up, and then they've used that as a justification for shooting the deer. And to me, I think be proud of anything you kill, and don't kill anything that you're not proud of. And whatever your standard is, stick with that. But I don't think
you're talking about the people that use that term,
as an excuse,
coal much as like a crutch to shoot something.
As sort of, and then they can post it, but and they're using.
Because I will say there are coal bucks that you wanted to get out of your population.
I will agree. That. I will agree that they exist, but I think it's very difficult to call an immature buck a coal buck unless you know this deer personally from last year and the year before or whatever. And but I really think that a lot of these people are more concerned with what your values are, or what your criteria is for killing a deer versus what is acceptable to them personally. And so they are trying to sort of say, oh, I shot this because he's a coal, because your impression and your sort of approval of what I've done is more important than me being proud of what I've done myself.
Right.
So me personally, I just that's the one thing that I think we should not worry about. And on the other side of that coin, we shouldn't judge. We talked about this earlier. Yeah. We shouldn't judge what other hunters do. If you want to use crossbow, use crossbow. If you want to shoot a spike and it's legal, shoot a spike. If you want, whatever it is that makes you happy and you can feed your family, then that's what you should do. But once you stop worrying about what you are proud and what you're approve of, and your own behavior, and you start worrying about what somebody else is, that's when you start to see conflict,
Yep.
and that's when you start to see unhappy hunters and that kind of thing. And so that, to me, I think, you know what, pull the trigger and be happy with it and post it and be proud of what you've done.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it for you. If you feel like you've had a successful hunt, and I don't care if it's a boon or a spike, if it's made you happy, I'm proud of what you did.
That's right.
And I think everybody else is too.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of the when people say you should have let it go, and and
Yeah.
all that ribbon and stuff I think
Yeah.
a lot of that, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it's jealousy.
Yeah, agreed.
I think there's a
Agreed.
lot of jealousy in the hunting world.
I'll tell you too, like, people say, oh, it'll have a messed up rack or whatever. Well, if you're managing that property and you're running cameras or you're seeing these deer,
That's right.
if it's just an off year for that deer because he could have got an injury. And we've
That's
seen
right.
them come back the next year with perfectly fine racks.
That's right.
And then
Case
even be
in
better.
point, that buck I killed this year, when we had him on camera at 3 years old, and he was a 3-year-old 8-pointer like any one of these little ones here. All right, and then at 4 years old, he was a nice buck, but one side was just 3. He only had 3, and had a long G2, long main beam, and had a long brow tine on.
Wow.
And I mean, you're like, that's a cool buck. Well, I knew the deer, and the 5th year, last year, he shows up and he's a perfect 8. And man, I hunted him, and on January the 4th this year, I killed him.
Yeah.
And he's
Finally
at
lined
Carlton
up.
Bowhannings right now getting mounted.
yeah.
I think it's really important that before you start, and I saw, and I wish I would have saved it. I don't know who posted it. At some point during deer season, I saw it, but it was a picture of a deer that, at face value, not knowing the deer, looks like a coal buck. And then they show them, like you said, the next year and the year after, and they've got like 7 or 8 years of this buck. And but I think it's very, very difficult to call any deer a coal buck unless you know.
Yeah, I mean, from
For
start to
he
finish,
could have got shot. He could have got hit by a car,
Right.
and that could mess up, for whatever reason, that messes up their horns on one side. And I say horns, I know it's supposed to be antler,
Yeah.
but and I think it's really, we use that term coal way too much. Shoot, if something walks in front of you, and you want to fill a tag, or you want to feed your family, or you enjoy pulling the trigger, pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And don't apologize. Don't apologize to anybody.
But if you want to grow big bucks, don't shoot your coals. Not just yet.
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah, if you want to grow
if you've
big
got
bucks,
a different
Yeah.
set of criteria, then
Well, that's like with the buck limits in the state of Alabama now. I mean, I think it evens out among everybody, because you can kill one spike and then you get a 6 and then basically 4 on one side.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean that pretty much takes care of everybody. If you want to, if you're can't hunt but on Saturdays and you don't care about horns and you're trying to feed your family, you can kill a spike and as many does as you want to
That's
kill.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it just leaves the door, and then it lets people who want to manage property right beside somebody that wants to shoot whatever they want, they can, because they're only going to take one small buck out of the herd. So now you can grow the rest of them bigger.
Well, most hunt clubs now, they have rack point restrictions. So
Right. Every club you get into will be different.
6 pointer better, 8 pointer better,
That's
whatever.
why I ain't never going to join
Yeah.
a club, is because I would,
Well, we got a club. We've been in it for 26 years, and it's my dad. He's the president of the club, and he lets people, what do you want? 6 point. Okay, yeah, y'all pay y'all's money. This is what we're going to do this year. Well, 3 years ago, we decided we're going to take 6 to 8. What we got now? 8
or 9 members.
8 of the core members. It's always been there.
Oh, great.
And now everybody in the club says, look, we want mature bucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going after.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
4-year-olds or older.
Good.
We don't care if it's a 4-pointer. Now we run cameras religiously. We know every deer on that property.
Yeah.
And so, we always say, all right, what about this deer right here? Yeah, that's, you can tell by the body.
That's right.
Yeah, if you want to shoot that one, you can shoot that one.
Yep.
And, we let a lot of, stuff like this go because, he's not the age limit yet. But, and that has worked out well.
The last buck that I killed it's been probably 4 or 5 years. And I'm heavy-handed, and I think that people could be justifiably so. I'm heavy-handed with the does. I really am. And what the way I may want to manage stuff is not for the next guy, and vice versa. But I killed a 147-inch buck a few years ago, and I've let everything else walk since then. And I had one, and I don't see a whole lot of bucks. I don't have the best, and the most deer. I mean,
Hey,
and
is that buck on your Facebook? Is that him?
No, that ain't me, Lord. That thing is a monster.
So
There he is, right
like
there.
200.
There he is, right there.
Okay, sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So
Great buck.
but I haven't shot a buck at all since then, except for that one I just told you. So I lied, clearly lied.
That happens.
That one with the broken leg, I shot him. He was,
Right.
I thought, a mercy. Turned
kill.
out not
Mercy
to be a
kill.
mercy kill.
Yeah.
But I let a lot of, and I had one last year that he came out or he's in the thick stuff, and real black looking deer, beautiful deer with these really vivid white rings around his eyes, and he looked to me like he was probably 130-inch deer, which may have been smaller, may have been bigger, but he is in the thick stuff, and he's at 25 yards, and no way to get no little windows, which I don't mind sometimes shooting through if I think I can pull it off, and I've been successful over the years with doing that. But if he comes on out, if he comes left, he gets to ride home on the four-wheeler, and if he goes any other way, he's going home. And so he turned right instead of left, and boy, I drew back on that thing, and he stopped right behind a tree, and it seemed like forever. I don't know that I could have, I may not have even been able to, shoot at him if he'd come the right way to begin with, but he ended up going the wrong way, and so I let a lot of small. I'll pull that phone out, and I'm telling you, lickety split. And part of it is I'll film, and I'm out filming and not want to shoot him.
Yeah.
If he's kind of on the.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, I haven't shot one in so long. It's been years now since I've shot a buck, and so I'll really kind of try to film and that kind of thing, and to take my mind away from it. The biggest deer I ever saw, and he was so big, I'd hate to. And he'd get bigger now that I'm telling the story, of course.
Just a few inches.
400-inch deer. Yeah, high fence looking. Must have escaped from high.
Yeah.
It was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was one of those rare Alabama days, like 18 degrees out, but the wind was blowing like 20 miles, gusting 20 miles an hour. But it started off real calm and everything. I was sitting on my deer stand, and I heard a deer coming in, and I was shooting not a wrist release, but the finger release and I would just let that thing hang from the D-loop. And I use these great, and I'm telling you, I'll see if I can get y'all some. You'll love them. I wish I would have thought I could have brought you some. I use these amazing bow holders made by Third Hand Archery. And I'm not just trying to plug sponsors. They are amazing. But you put your bow in this bow holder, reverse it, and you can climb in your climber with the bow in your bow holder.
Sweet.
You don't have to fool with the bow rope. It's amazing. And then when it comes time, you're not reaching way up over your head with all this movement to get your bow. It's right by your hand. They're
So basically,
phenomenal.
you just slide your hand in it and pick it up.
They are phenomenal.
Awesome.
Well, anyway, so I've got the bow in the bow holder. I hear a deer coming in. I know it's a deer, and you can kind of see through the thick stuff a little bit. He's coming out of the bedding area, but I got my bow off the bow holder, and that release, I don't know if it hit the riser when I was getting it off the bow or what. It hit something. There was metal on metal contact, and it was just like the faintest tink, but in that cold winter air. When nothing else is moving except this deer slowly moving through the woods, it sounds like...
You slammed a truck hood.
It sounds like you slammed a truck hood, right? Exactly. And so he quit, he quit moving. He was just about to step out, and he stopped moving, and I didn't know what he was. He ended up, I wouldn't have shot him anyways. 6 point. He walked behind me, and I could have killed him at that point and let him go. But I took that release, and I put it in. You know that tube hand warmer thing that you put? You got your hand warmer in there. So you got your hot hands in there, and but I put it in that thing. Now I am proud to say that I am rarely affected by buck fever. I am proud to say turkey fever is something else, but buck fever, I'm usually very level-headed and cool. As long as things are going according to script. When things start screwing up, then that's another matter. So I put that thing in my hand warmer. The wind starts coming up, and it's gusting so with the wind chill, it's like around 0 degrees.
Right.
I mean, it is cold. And I hear some movement between wind gusts coming from the left. And so I stand up. The biggest deer I have ever seen in my life runs out and stands, and I am telling you, I'm pointing at the ground at my feet in the studio. Y'all can't see, directly under me. I mean, directly under me. And there was I was using at the time that Evercalm stuff, that waxy stuff, and I put it on a branch. So he's sitting there. He stops right there, perfect, and he's sniffing that thing, and it's a slam dunk. I'm about to kill the biggest deer anybody's ever seen in the history of the world. Yeah. And Buckosaurus. I mean, Buckzilla. Nobody's ever seen the like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't look at the horns. Don't look at the horns. And so I pick up my bow off the bow holder, and I go to pull it back, and the release ain't there. And I'm calm. I'm calm, cold as ice, calm as anything you've ever seen. The release hitting there, and I don't remember where it is. And I start fumbling all over the place like I'm some crackhead having withdrawals. I can't find it. I can't remember what I've done with it. And he's giving me plenty of time. I probably should have just shot off the fingers, but he runs across the green field that I'm little teeny green field that I'm staring at. Right before he ran, took off, he looked over his shoulder the way he had come. So I thought, get it together, Chris. There may be another one behind him, because he looked like he was running. Yeah. And so I get the release out, put it on the D loop, and I'm ready to go for anything now that happened. A couple dogs come out. Great Pyrenees and something else come out that had been running him. But that is, and I promise you, it's 4 or 5 years, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, probably 5 years ago, and I have thought about that hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, have I thought about that day and those, want to stick out. And for me, that's one of the many blown opportunities over the years. Right. That, but I completely fell apart. Calm as ice until things start going wrong or you make a mistake. And then for me, that's when I usually suffer from a little buck fever. So.
Well, that's good. That's good stuff. Well, man, this has been fun, Chris.
I've really enjoyed it.
It's been a lot of fun. I have too.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got to meet you finally.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Shoot, anytime.
Yeah, Chris. Landon, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Y'all go on Facebook and y'all can look Chris up. He goes by Chris, but his legal name is Kristen, right?
No. Honestly, my legal name is Christopher.
Okay.
Christian I put because I feel as a Christian that people need to stand up and be counted as such. So my name is Christopher. I put Christian on Facebook because I am proud to be
a Christian.
And I'm proud that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
Amen.
Good deal, man.
Yeah. That's great.
But y'all definitely go on, and I guess they look it up, Christian Westen.
Christian Westen, Westen on Facebook.
Yep, he's a pro staffer from Mossy Oak and many others, and
scent blocker.
And y'all be able to follow him and watch his turkey season this year.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
All right.
God bless y'all.
You too. Yeah, we just want to thank Chris again for coming in. He had an hour ride to get here, and I think it was worth it. It was a real good show, And he's a very smart guy, and we're going to have him on again. Don't forget to go to his social media and follow him. Hit that like button and follow button. And don't forget to go to Alabama Sportsman's Facebook page and like and follow us there. Also on Instagram, it's Alabama Sportsman, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to do all that. And don't forget to listen to the podcast. Go ahead and wherever you get your podcast, go ahead and subscribe there. Thanks again for listening.